I really was born in Cincinnati in 1941, and Grandma Hetty did really have a banjo in the attic, as it says in this song, which is the story of my life. And when she brought it down, it turned out that it was a tenor uh, banjo ukulele mandolin. It had mandolin strings on it. It was short and it was from the 1920s. And she played one song on it, and it was Red Hot Mama, You're the One for Me. And then she never played again. So, in her honor, I will sing you the story of the history of my life. I'm Mr. Happy, Happy Banjo Man. I jump, I sing, I shout, I really am your fan. I wish you could see I really have no plan. I'm Mr. Happy Banjo Man. I was born in Cincinnati back in 41. We had a banjo in the attic that was half unstrung. When Mama brought it down, I soon devised a plan to be Mr. Happy Banjo Man. So I went to Sears and Roebuck and I bought me a book called How to Play the Banjo, and that's all it took. I started getting work before I was 15. That was Mr. Happy Banjo's dream. I was Mr. Happy, Happy Banjo Man. Jumping, singing, shouting, laughing, Banjo Man. I wish you could see I really have no plan. I'm Mr. Happy Banjo Man. Banjo. Well, a wise person once said, I think it was my aunt, the worst thing that can happen is to get what you want. By the time I turned 50, my fingers got sore and I didn't want to pick no more. I was Mr. Sad, Happy Banjo Guy, laughing on the outside, but inside I cry. Why can't they see if it's the same old song? You won't be happy long. So I went to the boss and I refused to play that benefit on Thursday for the PTA. The boss said, if you do, well, I can fill the void and you'll be Mr. Happy Unemployed. So I shined up the banjo and I changed my strings. I wrote some funny songs that I could try to sing. I promised myself that I would pick till death, muttering beneath my breath, oh, I'm Mr. Happy Banjo Man. If you think I'm happy, you're in La La Land, singing for a time that really has no span. I'm Mr. Happy Banjo. Makes you feel so doggone happy, makes you want to slap your pappy. Mr. Happy Banjo, Mr. Happy Banjo. Chicken in a bread pan, picking out dough. Granny, does your dog bite? No child, no. Mr. Happy Banjo, Mr. Happy Banjo. I looked in the mirror and what did I see? An old gray white man looking back at me. Mr. Happy Banjo, Mr. Happy Banjo. A little piece of cornbread laying on the shelf. If you want any more, you can sing it yourself. Mr. Happy Banjo Man. Let me see if I can check my own voice level here too. I'm a doctor. All right, yeah, this is the Doctor song. The Doctor song I wrote in 1980. We lived up in Buffalo, and I was at the big state university. And there they had all kinds of doctors, and they felt so important if they called each other Dr. So-and-so. I tell my students, I don't care what you call me, except don't call me And they say, what do you mean? I say, well, students often say, are you going to be in your office tomorrow? And I say, my name is not So in honor of these pompous people, I wrote this thing, and I used to sing it in this key, but now I'm going to sing it in, and Hope I make it through. Flight 84 from Baltimore was crowded on that day, but the passengers all settled back as we got on our way. Everyone had a glass of rum and some peanuts in his lap. Some got right down to business and others just took a nap. All except this older gentleman who was sitting on my right. I hadn't seen he was turning green and looking like a fright. He wheezed, he coughed, he gurgled, and he began to shout. And he tried to call for the stewardess just before he passed out. We don't have stewardesses anymore, do we? Well, the stewardess came a-running and loosened up his tie. She took his pulse and felt his face, and she began to sigh. "We'd better call the doctor, this man is mighty sick. There must be someone on the plane who could try to do the trick." "Attention, attention," the pilot's voice was loud. "Is there a doctor on the plane somewhere in the crowd?" I worried for a little while, then I almost dropped my cup. 'Cause when they asked who was a doctor, 20 hands went up. Well, the first to try was a well-dressed guy in a 3-piece button-down suit. The stewardess said, "Well, go ahead," but he just stood there mute. "I'd like to address the problem," this 3-piece doctor said. "But damn, I'm not a medical man, I'm a doctor of the head. I'm a doctor of philosophy. Anthropological demography is my specialty. If the guy wants to ponder population over yonder, don't hesitate to call upon me. 'Cause I'm a doctor of philosophy." Well, the next two came had a big long name with 16 syllables in it. And by the time he was through pronouncing his cue, I thought he would never begin it. And when he saw about the trouble, it burst his bubble and he walked away with a smirk. And I hollered at him through the smoke and the din, "Why can't you help him, you jerk?" And this doctor said, "I'm a doctor of education. I teach remediation and systems articulation. If he needs a report on his last resort, I'll teach it to the entire nation. 'Cause I'm a doctor of education." Well, I guess let's see. No, wait, here's the verse. Hope was fading fast, but I thought at last help was on the way. When a gentleman arrived about 55 with his temples turning gray. His kind old smile standing there in the aisle made me think we'd be okay. But I got worried when the doctor just hurried and knelt right down to pray. And this doctor said, "I'm a doctor of divinity, concerned with the unity of the Holy Trinity. If the guy needs a prayer even up in the air, my services reach infinity. 'Cause I'm a doctor of divinity." So a crew-cut guy in a red bow tie was the next one to assist, with a microcomputer and a Space Invader shooter and the Quartz watch on his wrist. He said, "I'm wishing I could just petition my Fortran memory and it'd instantly tell her what's wrong with this feller and we'd all be safe and free. 'Cause I'm a doctor of engineering and I've been hearing that's what you've been fearing. If it's a microchip, poker chip, a shooter chip, potato chip, I'll build it while you're cheering. 'Cause I'm a doctor of engineering." So I guess by now you're wondering how this story did finally unwind. We tried 19 doctors all in a row, but each was the wrong darn kind. And when the last one came, oh, what a shame, the worst thing in the world. The only doctor left on the plane was a 15-year-old girl. And this doctor said, I'm not a doctor of anything. I'm just a human being, and I think I'm seeing a peanut in his throat. She pulled it out. The guy spoke and said, "Thanks, Doc. That was close. You're a doctor of humanity. You're not consumed by vanity or insanity. You avoided a great calamity. Thank you, doctor of humanity." Okay, here we go. Back in the 1980s, Cindy and I took groups of Wake Forest students to the Soviet Union. We could do it for 10 days over spring break, and it was affordable, and it was hilarious. We really thought that the Soviet Union was the funniest place we'd ever been. They had a secret microphone in many of the hotel rooms, and we kept wondering if we could find it. And this song is about how we eventually found it, and then things didn't go too well after that. The secret microphone. Let me think, how does it start? Oh, I know. I have to explain that this thing is set to the tune of Look Away Dixieland. A politically incorrect song anymore, but that's the way it is. So we gotta go. Well, Ivan is the guy behind the microphone. Hello, Ivan, how have you been? We're all back in the USR again. We've come to set a spell in the Leningrad Hotel and see what kind of trouble we get in. Now, Ivan, you remember us from last year. We're the tourists who drank up all the beer when we tried to sell our jeans in Playboy magazines. You really gave us something to fear. Oh, here we are in the land of Len, and good times here are just beginning. Look away, look away, look away, Ruski land. Hey, Ivan, would you like to take a dare? We're all going to meet Vladimir on Red Square. We'll trade our old brass knuckles for Soviet belt buckles, and if you're not Vladimir, you'll be there. 'Cause we all think Vladimir is a fake. We're just a plant to see how many rules we'll break. So if you don't arrest him, we'll know that we can't trust him, and if you do, you'll never get your take. Do you want to be a Soviet hero? Take your blue jeans off, 10 below zero. Look away, look away, look away, Ruski land. Lazy man's banjo break there. Later on, back at the hotel. Well, Ivan, we've had our rendezvous. We were there at Lenin's tomb, but where were you? Vladimir took our clothes, and all we got were those 10 linen pins and a doll that comes in two. So, Ivan, are you listening tonight? The Americans are mad enough to fight. We're going to find that microphone if we have to use a fine-tooth comb, and we'll put you out of business good and tight. Is it there on the floor? Is it under the door? Is it red in the bed in the greater radiator? It's here somewhere in the room in Ruski land. Hey, Ivan, there's just one place it could be. In the center of the floor, I think I see a round metallic hump, just a little telltale bump. So Cindy, hand that socket wrench to me. There, Ivan, I've unscrewed the last big screw. Oh no, oh golly, what did I just do? An awful crashing sound. The chandelier hit the ground in the ballroom down on level number 2. Oh, Ivan, are you listening to me? Don't send me off to Siberia. I promise I'll be good like you never thought I could, if you'll just grant me total political amnesty. Really, Ivan, what can I say? I'm going back to the good old USA, where there's no one who can tell what I do in my hotel, and nobody's watching anyway. Oh, I can't wait for the land of cotton. No one there's against me plotting. Look away, look away, look away, Ruski land. The concept of Photoshop has been around for a while now. When I wrote this, we were over in France about the summer of maybe 10, 15 years ago, and Cindy had just gotten her Photoshop program to work, and she was taking pictures of even me and then making me look like I was young, which is not a good idea. So here's one we call the Photoshop song. Let me think, how does it start? Well, my baby bought a big new computer and a camera the size of a mule. She started to work it and learned how to jerk it without even going to school. She went and took a picture of a mountain. The mountain, it looked mighty fine, but something was wrong, I knew it all along. It was a big fat telephone line. So I said to her, well, baby, it's a pity to have your lovely picture being spoiled. She said it isn't a problem, it soon will be quite pretty, as soon as my computer has toiled. A bee was in her bonnet, she put the picture on it and clicked on a button called clone. And when she turned it on, the electric line was gone, and only the mountain was shown. Photoshop, don't stop. You can make all the baddies go away. With the click of a mouse, you eradicate a house and put another mountain in its way. Well, my baby took a picture of my face. At the age of 73, I'm a disgrace. My face is full of wrinkles, I always have to tinkle, and my skin is the color of paste. But after half an hour, I wasn't looking sour, I actually looked 43. She was just on to Photoshop my mug, and the guy in the picture wasn't me. Photoshop, please stop. Bring me back to what I am today. I just don't know that guy. He made me live a lie. Don't Photoshop him away. The U.S. president was fancy when he went to meet with the 8 world leaders. They'd wheel and deal in oil, let global warming boil, and study poverty with meters. They stood there in a line, looking mighty fine, until my baby got mean. She doesn't go for Bush, so with a single push, she Photoshopped him out of the scene. G7, that's heaven. The Bolsheviks would love this device. If you've got a bunch of guys and one of them fries, you Photoshop him out on ice. Back when I was a kid, if there's a picture, then what you're gonna get is what you see. Should Photoshop obscure it, you can't be really sure it corresponds to reality. You can't believe your eyes, You might be like those guys who disappeared from view. So treat your baby well, or you might go to hell if she's photoshopping you. Don't click, I'll stick. Oh baby, please let me stay. Don't hit me with your mouse, let me stay around the house. Don't Photoshop me away. Photoshop, 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 don't crop. Photoshop, 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 don't crop. Photoshop, 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 don't stop. Never knew how to end that song, so it doesn't matter. All right, it's time for me to go over and get out the slack guitar. This is the 1951 Martin guitar that's only 10 years younger than I am. It came up to Connecticut from Ohio on the top of a VW Bug in a cardboard box. It cost $125. It was worst out to sea at Malibu in '66, but I got it back. In the same year, it was stolen by gypsies in New York City, and a hippie found it and bought it back for $20. And now that it's old and I'm old, I've got it tuned down slack so that I can play the song here. That's called Je voudrais mourir en France, which means I would like to die in France. Now, why is that the title of the song? Well, I went back to studying French when I got to Wake Forest. I'd had it in college, because we were going over there for summer vacations a lot. And the song will explain the rest. And I know I'm going to flub the chords, but that doesn't matter. When I was young, I studied a tongue with lots of vowels and stresses. And I longed to go where there is no snow and the girls wear beautiful dresses. So in my middle age, I returned to the page to get the language back in my head. And when the prof asked why I was studying, I just simply smiled and said, Je voudrais mourir en France. Mais pas ce moment. Je voudrais mourir en France, mais pas de tout maintenant. Je préférerais m'arrêter sous le soleil enchanté en cet été immergé, brillant et chantant. Je voudrais mourir en France, mais pas cet été. Je voudrais mourir en France, mais pas cette année. Ça sera pour moi une autre fois. Ce que je voudrais n'est pas mourir en France, ne mourir jamais. Guitar. Terrible when you write a song that the chords are so complicated you can't remember them. Well, now we're going to give you the English translation. I would like to die in France, but not exactly right now. I do plan to die in France, but I'm not sure when or how. I'd like to play another day and find a way to let me stay. Oh, please give me one more chance to die in France. I would like to die in France, but maybe not this year. I don't want to die in France until I've had a chance to hear that evening bell, so I can tell it's time to dwell in the fires of hell. I think I really want to stall and not to die at all. Now, moving along to more philosophy, I wrote a song about heaven, but it's not your typical bluegrass gospel song. It sort of compares heaven and hell and the advantages of each. I hope I can get through it because it's been a while since I sang it. Okay, a lot of chords coming up here. You're not allowed to smoke. You're not allowed to chew. You have to wear a robe that's Carolina blue. You have to sing all morning in keys like G and C. Oh, heaven sounds like hell to me. Now heaven is a place you go where nothing's supposed to trouble you. You have to vote Republican. You have to vote for W. The strongest drink that you can get is decaffeinated tea. Oh, heaven sounds like hell to me. Now I believe in Jesus and I believe in God, but if I can't get what pleases, then I'm really scrod. No, I don't want perfection. I'd rather watch MTV, 'cause heaven sounds like hell to me. In hell, the coals are scalding, the coffee's about to boil, and in a nearby cauldron, they're heating up the oil. There's lots of people forking. Why, the handout forks for free. Oh, hell sounds like heaven to me. Now you might think I'm joking by making up this tale, but if you feel like smoking, then you just inhale. One thing down there's for certain, you won't freeze your yah-hee-hee. Oh, hell sounds like heaven to me. Fyodor Dostoevsky in 1869 said a man gets used to anything after serving time. If this is true, there's no solution waiting there for me, 'cause hell's the same as heaven would be. Now you may think it's sappy, but it's not so bizarre. If you were always happy, how would you know you are? There's only one solution to this dichotomy. Limbo is the only place for me. In limbo the weather changes, sadness turns to mirth. Things down there go back and forth, just like here on earth. Fourth. Some of the girls are ugly, and some are yah-hee-hee. Oh, limbo is the only place for me. Now limbo's not for sinners, limbo's not for saints. Limbo's where they send you when they have a few complaints, like if you stole a chicken or couldn't keep it in your paints. Limbo's for the good folks, limbo's for the good folks, limbo's for the good folks who ain't. And that's all. All right, so we got through heaven and hell. Now, speaking of heaven, here is another song about heaven. I wrote this one back when I worked at the giant university in Buffalo and had certainly a more cynical outlook on academia than I wound up with, because I've had a wonderful 30-some years of working at Wake Forest. Up in Buffalo, they were actually worried about whether there would be such a thing as they would run out of slots for tenured people. And if you were coming up the ladder and you deserved tenure, they'd say, well, sorry, we have a tenure quota. So understanding that is all you need to enjoy this song called Will I Have Tenure in Heaven? The story of my life began one winter night when my mama taught me everything she knew. That's when she told me, son, you've got a race to run. Do unto others as they do to you. Well, I wasn't born a fool, so I took a job in school, had a great Midwestern university. My colleagues liked me fine, and after quite some time, they chose me to lead their faculty. Wow, oh, life is long and lean for an academic dean. The rewards and the pleasures mighty few. 'Cause if you do your job too well, the faculty can tell, and what you've done to them they'll do to you. Well, in just a few short years, I'll set aside the tears and get ready for that great eternity. But there's something I'd like to know when it comes my time to go. And here's what my question's gonna be. Oh, will I have tenure in heaven? Will the president in the sky say yes or no? Yes or no? Will my publications count like the Sermon on the Mount? Or will my record send me down below? When I reach the pearly gates, I just might hesitate, depending on who greets me at the door. If it's St. Peter, I'll be fine, but not if it's Weisenstein, 'cause I recommended negative on him back in '64. Oh, will I have tenure in heaven? Will the provost in the sky say yes or no? Will my publications count like the Sermon on the Mount? Or will my record send me down below? Oh, what if I'm called before heaven's presidential board to explain my humanity's retrenchment plan? And the ones who fought me biased would be sitting on the dais with a contract called the Bible in their hand. They would sing Amazing Grace, and then they'd say this place is run with total objectivity. So it's hell you've got to go to, heaven's got a tenure quota. If you came in here, we'd go above 70%, and we just can't have that happen. Oh, will I have tenure in heaven? Will the big Dean in the sky say yes or no? Will my application fly through those mansions in the sky? Or will my record send me down below? Cindy and I used to go to France, but very often what we wanted to do was buy something or go somewhere and it would be closed, and they would say, Désolé, fermé. So this is the song with that title. From the year 2003. I took that frequent flyer to France 2003. I thought the trip would be so good it wouldn't bother me. We'd get some wine, we'd get some cheese and sit out in the sun. And when we got it all set up, we'd really have some fun. I went down to the bakery to get a loaf of bread. When I got there, the place was dark and looking kinda dead. I banged and knocked until a lady poked out her head. She smiled and looked down at me, and this is what she said. Désolé, fermé. You'll have to come back another day. Nous sommes ouverts tous les jours, ouverts par devoir, sauf lundi, mardi, mercredi, vendredi et dimanche le soir. Well, I had to get some euros, had to get them at the bank. My clothes were getting smelly and they really almost stank. The main bank wasn't open, but I knew they would get clean. When to my great delight I spied a teller-2 machine. I whipped out my plastic and put it in the slot. The sun was shining down on me and I was getting hot. I couldn't read the window until I raised my paw, and there in French upon the bench, this is what I saw. Désolé, fermez votre plastique et maintenant mangez. Pour retrouver la plastique, il faudra retourner un autre jour quand nous ne serons pas fermés. I had to make a phone call, had to tell him I was here. This is before the days of cell phones. I had a couple telecards left over from last year. I put one in the slot and dialed the number right away. And there in stone above the phone, here's what it did say. Désolé, périmé. Your telecard expired just yesterday. I went to the dictionary and looked up périmé. It seems to mean you're up the creek a long, long way. Well, I knew that the post office would close at 16:30. I needed stamps for my postcards, they sure were mighty purty. I made it to the post at 16:30 and a half, just in time to hear them shut the door and start to laugh. Désolé, they fermé. There's another post office down the way. If you hop in your car and drive real far, you just might be okay. They're open till 5 if you get there alive, and then they'll be fermé. Well, after all that driving, I really had to pee. There wasn't any bushes, there wasn't any tree. I finally found an outhouse, or so it seemed to me. EDF was on the door, so I went in to see. Within the gloom, I found a room where I'd relieve myself. Graffiti about some guy named Mort was written on the shelf. I got my body ready and released a mighty stream. And the last thing I remember was letting out a scream. Désolé, electricité. St. Peter, I'm coming all the way. The pathway to eternity apparently is France. If you thought it was an outhouse and you unzipped your pants. If you thought it was an outhouse and you unzipped your pants. I've probably written only one love song, and this is it. And it was for Cindy. It was about pigs. And we went to France that summer and found actually some little toy pigs that had wings. And they were flying if you put the batteries in them right. So this song came from that thought that pigs can fly. The first time you ever came into my view, I said to myself, now what can I do for a woman like you and a man such as I? It would be more likely that pigs would fly. So I waited my time in case it could be, in spite of the odds between you and me. And suddenly out of the clear and the blue, pigs flew. Pigs do. They just don't show their wings to you. You don't believe it, but it's true that pigs do. To have the impossible dream come true was more than my wandering mind could go through. And so it would happen. I might have to pray that you would let me stay. Pigs may, if you ask them in a special way. You need the blue ones or the gray. Then pigs may. So what are the chances that both of us may still be together until the last day? Not very likely is what I would say if I didn't know what's in the sky. Pigs fly. There goes a pink one way up high. There may be more now by and by, 'cause pigs do fly. I know what we're going to do. It's getting to be Christmas time, and my family doesn't necessarily like this because it's not politically correct, but neither am I. The question at Christmas time that I like to ask is, what do Santa Claus, Frosty the Snowman, and Sherlock Holmes have in common? They are all pipe smokers. So this is the song about pipe smoking, and I have no idea what key to put it in, but it won't matter because all that matters is the words. Well, I want to be like Sherlock, weird and cool and smart. I want to smoke what Sherlock smokes, tell me how to start. I want to be like Frosty till I melt away. I want to smoke from Santa's pipe here on Christmas Day. Well, Frosty the Snowman was politically incorrect. In spite of that, he commanded all the children's great respect. It wasn't his red scarf, and it neither was his eyes. It was something in his mouth that brought the doctors great surprise. There must have been tobacco in that old corn cob they found, 'cause when they lit old Frosty up, he began to melt right down. Down in the village, there came an awful roar. Frosty's a ghost, Frosty's toast, Frosty smokes no more. It came upon a midnight clear that Sherlock Holmes went out. He took his pipe, he took his bag, and something for his snout. His goal to solve the greatest crimes and save the world from war was thwarted when the doctor said that he could smoke no more. He took an object from his bag and took another puff. Achoo! It's clear the substance in his pipe was not the usual stuff. And so to Watson he did say, the greatest mystery, where's that 5 chord, about the meaning of the earth is elementary. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the manse the purification of air was enhanced. The stockings were draped on the sofa with care, because the old chimney was no longer there. The tree artificial with children's safe lights gave no allergenics to mess up our nights. The rodent repeller with ultrasound screech made sure that no mouse had yet conquered the breach. Mama in her kerchief and I in my truss had just settled down for a nap just for us. When up on the roof I heard such a ruckus, I went to see who was trying to force his way in. And up on the roof I beheld a fat man whose belly's as big as the land of Japan. Ho, ho, said the fat man all lively and quick. I could tell at a glance that he must be a pretty good fellow. Oh, where is your chimney, kind mister, he asked. I said, we've no chimney, we did in the past. But now that clean gas logs have come into view, we closed up the chimney and threw out the flue. Well, how can I bring these nice presents inside, said the man who was fat in a tone that was snide. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke had exuded a dangerous wreath. So I said to St. Nicholas, you must be joking. You never can come in the house while you're smoking. The old man just sighed and looked down from the roof and said, if you feel that way, I'll just go poof. And laying a finger inside of his nose and giving a nod to the heavens he rose. But I heard him exclaim as he drove out of sight, my matches are gone, someone give me a light. Here comes another one, which I don't have to get any particular instrument for. Have you ever had somebody who gives you a present and you didn't want it, but you have to have it because they gave it to you? I think this is going to work here. I've got a wonderful present for you all. It's a poster from Kathmandu, Nepal. I brought it all the way from the shores of Mandalay, and I'm sure it'll look real nice on your living room wall. Be sure that when you frame it, you use protective glass. And when you hang it, aim it, don't stick it up too fast. I'll be back next time you're cooking to see how my picture's looking. And if you're nice, I'll bring one for the hall. I've got a wonderful book for you to read. It's just the kind I think you really need. It's all about a guy who became a Russian spy. He was bought, sold, tried, convicted, jailed, then freed. And when you finish reading it in a week or two, 1,500 pages won't be too much for you. Be sure to bring it back with the dust cover intact, and please don't fray the edges when you do. I've got got some wonderful news that'll make you puke. Your daughter's won a scholarship to Duke. Her math score was so high, it almost reached the sky, and nobody can say it was a fluke. There's just a little matter, you'll see it at a glance. Her room and board will cost so much you'll almost lose your pants. Although the cost's atrocious, your daughter's so precocious, I know you'll want to give her every chance. I've got a wonderful present for you, a St. Bernard puppy or two. You can have them when you wish. They'll eat supper from the same small dish until their first semester is through. I guess that's trimester. Then they'll need more attention. Attention's by the score. Flea powder, heartworm pills, dog doors, and more. I'll be back in just a week to only take a peek and see the shining look upon your faces. God damn, your new dog chewed up my shoelaces. All right. Well, from the years that I worked in the dean's office at Wake Forest, I met many wonderful people. And one of the most common problems they all had up there was they wanted to drop a course after it's too late. Like they want to see if they're winning the game before they decide if they're playing it. And so in those people's honor, those who suffered especially, for the better, I wrote a song called Please Mr. Dean. And I want to dedicate this to John because John challenged me to regain my left hand to the point where I could play this song because it isn't all that easy. I don't know why I have to write songs that have difficult chords. I went down to the dean's office Monday morning. There sat a freshman, a moaning and a groaning. He had a bunch of textbooks under his arm. His expression was worn, but his face was warm. And he had a bunch of ad slips in his teeth with a letter from the registrar underneath. He said, "Sir, I got a plan. If you'll just let it this semester, I want to take 22 credits. Give me honors, math, and accelerated Russian, history of philosophy and advanced percussion. And even though you might think I'm manic, I want to start chemistry with organic. Oh, please, Mr. Dean, let me take 213. Please, Mr. Dean, it's the chem course of my dreams. I know I'm just a freshman and I delay, but my advisor said it's okay. So please, Mr. Dean, let me have 213. Yeah, I said, please, Mr. Dean, give me that 213. Thank you, Merle Travis. Well, I tried to talk him out of it, but then I gave way. He'd never had a grade that was less than an A, so I signed the papers and he said bye-bye, and he headed for the registrar on the fly. But 2 weeks later, he was back in the office, all humble and meek. He said he didn't want to scoff us, but the trouble with organic was it's so hard, and that danged old professor ought to be retarded. Had a pop quiz yesterday without any warning. We got the grades back just this morning. Instead of 100, I got a 70, and I want to drop the course without any penalty. Oh, please, Mr. Dean, get me out of 213. Please, Mr. Dean, you gotta keep my record clean. 'Cause if I don't get a 95, I'm no fool. It'll ruin my chances for medical school. Oh, please, Mr. Dean, keep my record clean. Yeah, I said, please, please, Dean, keep my record clean. Well, I sat back in my chair and lit up my pipe. I said I don't mind just to listen to you gripe, but you made a promise, son, it's not heaven. You could read it in the catalog, page 27. The deadline is past. You can stick it out to the end of the course. The dean can be mean if it's what you really need. So we want to see you happy, we care about you, but we want you to swallow what you bite off and chew. And that's how the dean gonna keep your record clean. Yeah, I said, that's how the dean keeps your record clean, that's all. Returning to the academic vein, it's possible to take a joke and turn it into a song, but this thing might work out better if it's read as a poem. So here's a joke turned into a poem by me. It says I did it in 1983, about a college president and the dilemmas that faced that person. Templeton Kent was the president, and he served for 25 years. Through federal cuts and doctoral gluts, through the smoke-filled rooms and the tears. When he'd had enough, although he was tough, he knew just when to quit. He told his successor, a professor named Messer, just how to survive in this shiftless business. He said, if things get ugly, he said, if things get tight, I've left you a solution to make everything all right. You'll find my desk is empty, except for the backmost drawer. You'll find my secret in there, and you couldn't ask for more. I've left you 3 envelopes. Open number 1 if you just can't cope. Open number 2 if you think you are through, but don't open number 3 unless you can see that normal attrition won't help your position, that stalling and squalling won't keep your roll balling, that it wants to make you shine this great institution, and there you'll find the solution. Well, the brand new boss rode a big white hoss, and things went fine for a while, but it wasn't too long before Messer went wrong, and his young face lost its smile. An unresolvable dilemma about a teacher named Emma had gotten the campus aroused. She was on a glib roll and being too liberal in the position she espoused. The faculty were angered, the trustees did resist, the women's groups held vigils, and the students off were pissed. In total desperation, Mr. Messer took a stand. He remembered the first envelope and opened it with a trembling hand. There's the sound of the envelope. And it read, blame it on your predecessor. Say it was all my fault. You'll want to try this tactic first if you're ever worth your salt. If things get disturbing, you can reach for the bourbon, but there's one thing that you shouldn't do. Don't open the second unless you can reckon there's no choices left for you. Believe it or not, results were got, and the problem went away for a spell. But then the old issue ignited like tissue and came back hotter than hell. Mr. Messer couldn't think without taking a drink, and he couldn't even figure out when to hope. He felt like his brain was going to go down the drain. Then he remembered the second envelope, and it said, appoint a special task force reporting in 2 years. That should assuage all parties. That should allay their fears. If you're the least bit lucky, they'll never reach agreement, and you can just ignore them because it's not cast in cement. The next 2 years were golden, at least in Messer's eyes, but the task force then reported back, much to his surprise. And instead of a solution, a near revolution burst on the campus with a roar. It was so much worse he nearly called the hearse. Then he remembered the backmost drawer. A long, long time he pondered, with the bourbon taking its toll. Outside, the crowds were screaming, Messer's head must roll. His fever was torrid. He wiped at his forehead, and moaning in misery, he played his last ace and opened in haste envelope number 3. And it said, prepare 3 envelopes, Messer, the same ones that I left for you. What made you think you would not be extinct after envelope number 2? The secret of surviving and accomplishing all that you hope can't and it shouldn't and couldn't and wouldn't fit in an envelope. There was a phrase in Latin that I saw inside of a musical instrument. one time, and it went like this: Vivo fui in silvis dom vixi tacui mortua dolce cano. And I took it to Dr. Ullery in the Latin department, and he said, well, that's bad Latin. I said, well, I kind of like it. What does it mean? It means I was alive in the forest. I was slain by the cool axe. In life I was silent, in death I sweetly sing. So here we go. Did you ever make a violin? I made 3. The first one got stolen in New York in '66. And then I spent 10 years making the one that we're going to use right here on this song. And I kept thinking, what did the tree feel like when it got cut down to be made into a fiddle? This song then explores that thought, and we'll see how we make out here with Evan's great mastery of overdubbing. One from 1,000, of 1,000 not to be, the flower of the mountain, the daughter of the tree. I was the one seed chosen to fall conceived of grace by the wild birds of the forest to mark my resting place. Out on the mountain I stood a century. Fire blew the other way, and the wind made peace with me, and sang across my branches a melody refrain, until the woodsman found me, until the Maker came. I was alive in the forest, by the cruel axe I was slain. In life I was silent, in death I sweetly sing. In death I sweetly sing. Once again chosen, from 1,000 not to fall, the cold steel of the razor and the wild teeth of the saw cut me into timber, took me from my land. I died and was born to life into the Maker's hand, into the Maker's hand. Once again the razor and the cold steel of the plain, but this time not in anger, and this time not in vain. The hand that once raped me and thrust the razor in, it's the hand that has shaped me into a violin. Oh, what is a violin but a memory of the song of the wild birds of the mountain and the wind that sings along? If still the wood remembers the music of the hill, it dies and it's born again to do the Maker's will. I was alive in the forest, by the cruel axe I was slain. In life I was silent, in death I sweetly sing. In death I sweetly sing. Now we're going to do a sad one, and I think the banjo will work okay for it. I got to sing it at my 50th college reunion, if you can imagine that. The old man in the mirror. I didn't recognize him the first time he was there, with spectacles and wrinkled skin and gray straw flower hair. I asked him what he wanted, and I told him he should go. But the old man in the mirror said hello. The old man in the mirror was wasn't me, no way. I don't have a brown spot, I don't have yellow teeth, but there was something in his bearing and the way he smiled at me that I wondered who the old man could be. I thought he was my father who left so long ago, but Dad was short and kind of thin and eager to say no. So when I looked him over, my dad I couldn't see. The old man in the mirror looked like me. The old man in the mirror heaved a sigh, and he said, "Are you ready now to cry?" I said, "It's way too early. There's more things left to do." But the old man in the mirror said, "It's you." So then in desperation I tried to shake his hand, but the more I tried to touch him, the more his touch was banned. "So has your life been worthy?" the old man asked of me, and in my haste I answered, "We'll see." The old man in the mirror said, "No way. It's a decision that must be made today. So have you thought it over? And what do you have to say?" And I had to tell the old man, okay. I thought about my children, they live so far away. I thought about the animals, I feed them every day. But the thing that I thought most about, what brought me close to tears, was my beautiful wife of 46 years. The old man in the mirror said, "Not bad. You did well with the privilege you had. You could have done it better, but what is done is done, and I'm here to say your race is nearly run." There's nothing like the feeling of knowing that it's near, the time you always think about, the time you always fear. So I asked the old man, "When will be my time to go?" And the old man in the mirror said, "You'll know." The old man in the mirror said, "You'll tell if you must go to heaven or to hell. The time you want to know about, the time you reach the sky, is when the old man in the mirror says goodbye. When the old man in the mirror says goodbye."